Some noise, maybe? Ah, no. Hey, ooh. Wow, it's heavy. Hey, this is Stimming. In this video, I show you the PERfourMER MKII from Vermona. It's one of my modern classics that I want to show you. Also, one of the ones that were mentioned the most, I think, when we asked you what I have to review, even if it's not a real review. So, the PERfourMER, a beauty, a heavily built for ages, pure analog technology from Eastern Germany. And let's go. As the name implies, there's a 4 inside. It's basically 4 analog synthesizers, and what makes it special is they are independent from each other. So it's really 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a synthesizer, this is one, this one, this one. Oh, there was a tone. And yeah, you can trigger them manually. You can also switch that off to not accidentally trigger it. And there's a tuning tone, 440 Hertz. I'm sorry. No, sorry. This time I got it. And this also leads to a speciality or something which you have to do every time you switch it on. You have to tune it because it's 4 different synths and all of them have an individual tune. When I play it right now, it's a little bit out of tune. Let me go through them individually. Yeah. So the very first thing you have to do is you have to tune it. That's what we're going to do. VCA on. Okay, next one. Next one. Ah, that's perfect. So here there's like a third tone, like a modulation in between the oscillator and the exact 440 Hertz. And the slower this modulation is, the more exact you are in tune. Really good. Okay, last one. Okay, now this thing is in tune. If we check it, yeah, much better. So all those 4 synthesizers can be played individually. You can assign an individual MIDI channel to each of them. We're not going to do this today. I just want to mention the possibility. For now, I switch off 3 of them. I just talk to the PERfourMER on MIDI channel 1, and we just hear what the possibilities of just one of those synthesizers are, and then I get to the playing modes and the really interesting things. So one synth just sounds like this. That's the sine wave. In analog synths, there are no real sine waves. It's a trick, but that's low. The envelope for the amp is just an ADSR, standard ADSR envelope. Can be quite short, but it's not the shortest I ever had. But it can be very long. Yeah, you see, very long. Different waveform is the triangle. A glide. The square. the square shape can be modulated by CC1, the modulation knob. The pulse width, that's what it is. And you can also do this via the internal LFO. And that goes quite far, I would say. It goes very close to the needle, so it's basically, it's gone. The LFO also can be applied to the filter. Has three waveforms: the saw wave, the triangle, saw wave, sine, and sample and hold. Okay, then the envelope also can be applied to the pitch. Can you do a bass drum with it? Not sure. Okay, then we have the saw wave. Let me get back to the EEG. Yeah. Pure saw waves always sound very unfriendly to the ears if you don't do anything with them. They're very, very static. Here it's the same. I have to say the saw wave is the one that I somehow don't like too much because I've heard much brighter saw waves. So that's it. It's not very impressive for me. The resonance from the filter also isn't very impressive. I can go a bit down again, because it thins out the sound very, very fast. And there's not real self-resonance. I suppose it's a 12 dB filter, but I didn't check the manual. The envelope also can be applied to the filter. There's a filter tracking, 50%, 100 and 0. There's a panning knob. The VCA can be switched from on to gate to the envelope, volume, and all of this 4 times. Questions? I have one. Can you sync the other ones to the first one? Yes, you can. That was a mandatory question. Is that the right term? So the 2, 3, and 4 oscillate synths can be somehow be related to the first ones or the one before. That's where the section on the left comes in. So there's a VCO sync button. So before we talk about that, I show you some examples of how very simple sounds do already interact with each other. If, for example, we go for sounds out of tune, doesn't it? Why? So that's our initial tone. I go down 1 octave, close it a bit, and then on top I want to hear something coming a bit later with, let's say, square wave, which is a bit modulated. Let's use this one, and I also want to hear a third one. Another octave on top. Still out of tune. Why? So there's one problem with the interface, or let's say with the tune knob being placed at this position. By accident, you just touch it a tiny little bit and it does this difference in the machine sounding out of tune suddenly again. Even if I tuned it, you saw me tuning it. And another one on top. Blah. Okay, then I let the upper ones, I let them glide a bit. Again, we're coming from here. And then if I use the panning, it's already quite interesting for my ears. Still, it's very obvious that it's something very simple. It's a combination of very, very simple sounds. I go back a bit. Okay, the play mode determine how the performer reacts on incoming MIDI data. So it has 6 play modes, M1, M2, D1, 2, and P, polyphonic. D means duo, mono, duo, and polyphonic. M1 is basically a unison. It's all of them, that's where we were. And for now I'm going to stay here, because you can frequency modulate the VCO and the filter with the oscillator which came before via this knob. You can also sync either the VCO or the LFO, and we start with the VCO sync with the same sound. Yeah. And I just sync all of them to the very first one. And now we're gonna apply some frequency modulation. Okay, no. So I think it's quite obvious that there's a lot of fatness coming out of it. Very round fatness. Even a VCO sync isn't necessarily aggressive, I think. Oh, I'm a bit too loud, I'm sorry. Also something, the range of dynamic output is very, very broad. So it's a good idea that the master volume is so prominently placed here, and also the individual volumes. So that's LFO sync, the VCO sync. Then I show you the frequency modulation, and therefore I have a little sequence playing here. Okay, I don't hear anything. Why? Why? Because I don't know why. Okay, frequency modulation. This works very good if you apply the hello. Okay, this one reacts on this one. And okay, then another one, or maybe a different. Way too low. Okay, so that's this playing mode. It's all unison. They are on top of the synth. I just need to mention it again. You can play them totally independently. So if you need 4 very, very basic tones independently played on a different MIDI channel, then it's absolutely no problem. Oh, by the way, as usual with this range of instruments from Vermona, it has those those CV inputs at the back. And I don't have a modular system again, so I don't need it in. But of course, you can also not only play them individual by a MIDI channel, also with a CV input. Those inputs and outputs basically allow you to implement an external audio with the upper one, and then you can switch the oscillator to external. Oh, by the way, there's a noise. Let's hear how the noise sounds. But also, like, usually a noise should hurt, shouldn't it? Oh, there's a helicopter. Wow. It felt like there's a modulation inside the synthesizer. Usually a noise should hurt in the very, very high frequencies. It sucks, definitely, as a noise should, but the very last, like, britzel, fitzel, the highest frequencies, somehow somehow this synth is lacking a bit on it, unfortunately, I think, because no. So we were talking about the playing modes. I just looked at all the synths basically play something like the same, like this. No. Okay, so we play the same sequence, but now with a playing mode that switches between the synths. The first one was the Unison mode. Beautiful, isn't it? Then there's the second, the third and fourth playing mode, which is duo. So it's basically means that it's like two of them played together. Which means, for example, I can tune the second one to a fifth. If that's gonna work, I'm not sure. Okay. Okay, I think it's time to show you the main secret of the machine, which is the LFO sync for me. That means the LFOs from 2, 3 and 4 are synced to the speed of the first one. I go to the saw wave, and the speed buttons, they just show the phase of the LFO. Now I open up the LFO. Oh, and you can MIDI sync that, of course. So I go in the edit menu, go to LFO clock sync, switch on. Here we are. Let's go down. No! Okay, that's what I said earlier. I accidentally touched the tune. Okay, playing mode 2. I don't know what the difference between those two playing modes is, to be honest. But then there's the polyphonic playing mode, where you can play all the 4 synths at one time. So can I hold somewhere? No, I cannot on this one, unfortunately. Let me switch off the MIDI sync. Okay. I still forgot the tuning of 2 and 4. That's why my chords didn't work out properly. I'm afraid I need to tune it again. Let me see. Okay, and if I play something like that and decouple the LFO speed, it's very, very nice if I add something on top with a fast LFO, but a very, very slow envelope. So yeah, it's a bit out of tune actually. So when using this in a track, you have to be very, very careful that all of them are in tune. It's basically like four strings of a guitar. It's like playing a guitar in a sense. And yeah, the two playing modes, the two polyphonic playing modes, they have a difference in the one mode, the synth kind of remembers which note was kind of connected to a synth, and if you play the same note and there's not any other logic in between, then it tries to always play the same note, the same synth with the same note. On the other mode, it's just a round robin. Yeah, I think I showed you pretty much everything you can do with it. The very first, I wasn't too happy about the basses I played in the very beginning, but it really can do fat and unison sounding basses with a little bit of aggressiveness to it, not too much, unfortunately. I'm not too happy about the saw wave in the filter because it seems to kind of cut off everything above 10 Hertz or something, and 10K. And apart from that, that's pretty much it. You can sync the LFOs, you can sync the VCOs, you can frequency modulate, you can use the filters for external in. You can also send out the pure oscillator signal, this section with the out. I used this machine for those complex LFO sounds you heard at the end, because I think that's where it really, really shines. And I just recognized that it should be incredibly cool to send something else into it, especially something more complex than just the normal sine, triangle, square, and saw wave VCO, even when the VCOs themselves sound good, but they're not anything special. Yeah, so conclusion, the machine itself is very beautiful. It's very beautiful to touch it and to make music with it. The downside is you have 4 different synths, which is complicated to perform with. So it's a little bit funny that they call it performer, but in the end, doing a performance with it is very, very difficult. For example, I had it on a show at the 4D sound system in Budapest together with Acid Pauli. I brought it and I made something very, very nice, because in the 4D system you can place single sounds in the room, and I had like 4 of those everywhere in the room placed. But this EG intensity, so the envelope goes into the tune. On one of those synths was open, and I was like, "What sounds so shit? It sounds totally shit. Totally not what I expected." And it was just a little bit of one of those knobs. The knob underneath the LFO intensity doesn't have a clear 0 point, so it's very easy to kind of get into the frequency modulation range, which then can sound like this. Let's sync them. And if it's only just a tiny little bit, that's still. It's ugly. It's a cat mourning. It's a cat at night having problems in her love life. So everything is very beautiful until it's not. And the range between very beautiful and not is very short. It's a very short range in between those. So on the one hand side, it's a complicated instrument and it's difficult to handle and you have to tune it all the time. On the other hand, when you get something beautiful out of it, it's very, very beautiful. It's not a one-trick pony necessarily, but it has a certain area in the modern music world where I think it fits very, very well, but it definitely cannot do everything. But for this, what it can do, I will keep it for the rest of my life, I promise.